Good evening. This time we will call to order the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting for September 7th, or September 10th rather. Apologize. And we will ask Commissioner Verplank to lead us in the pledge.
Would you all please rise? Put your hand on your heart. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Verplank. I'd like to note for the record that all commissioners are present. And doesn't appear to be any presentation items, so we would go into the consent calendar, and I had a request to pull the minutes from the consent calendar, so I would be happy to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar minus the minutes, and then we'll get into that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we'll vote. And the motion carries. All right, and then I will defer to my colleague to my left, who has asked for the minutes to be pulled.
Well, I just ask you to look at item 8, the appeal of the Director of Development Services denial of the PCN. I noticed that it was a 4-1 vote with Commissioner Verplank abstaining, and I didn't recall that to be the vote. I thought it was a 4 yes and a 1 no.
No, I did abstain.
Oh, I thought you had an opinion on that.
All right, any more comments, or I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve that as well then.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and let's vote. And the minutes have been approved. All righty, so that moves us into our public hearing. So at this time, I will public hearing and look for a staff report.
Okay, our first item this evening is a plan sign program for Panera Bread drive-through located on Rockfield Boulevard. Report.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a plan sign program for drive-through signage for Panera Bread, which is located in the newly remodeled Lake Forest Gateway Shopping Center. The proposed signage includes drive-through directional signage, a clearance bar, a pre-menu board, and a menu board with order confirmation screen and protective canopy. The drive-through signage is located on the northeast elevation of the building and serves the purpose of assisting customers through the drive-through. Additional details and illustrations of the signs and their locations can be found in your staff report. The number and size of these drive-through signs are not excessive, and the signs do not distract from the overall character of the shopping center. Public notices were sent out and published in the local paper, and staff did not receive any comments. Accordingly, staff is recommending approval of this plan sign program. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and the applicant is in the audience tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go too far down this road, I am realizing, and was also reminded by a colleague, that, but I had already caught it. I accidentally skipped public comments. So I will come back to public comments on any items not on the agenda as soon as we finish this, since we've already started it, just to keep things clean. So, so at this point, are there any questions for staff on this one?
I have a question. Amanda, do you know when that light is to go in, the signal?
No, I do not know. I don't know if Gail might know when the light's going in.
No, I don't have that date. We can find that out from our Public Works Department and send that information to the Commission.
Would the drive-through open before the signal goes in?
I would have to refer to the original conditions of approval. Had considerable square footage without a signal, and a lot of the square footage has been taken down.
Okay.
So I'm not sure there was a nexus there between the installation of the signal and what could open at what time.
Okay, thanks, Gil.
For what it's worth, I think there was actually they couldn't get their permits for certain parts of, I don't know if it was the occupancy, final occupancy or what, something tied to, some of the permits were tied to the intersection, but not all of them. So. All right. Any other questions for staff on this one? All right. So we will open the public hearing on this item and ask if there's anybody who would wish to speak from the public on this one. Okay. We have no requests to speak. So I will pull it back up to us. Does anybody want to start the discussion? He's going to leave me hanging. All right. Yeah, I'll just say, once again, staff has given us, plan sign programs are fairly straightforward anyway, and I drive past that project a lot, and it really looks like it's coming together, so I don't have a problem with moving forward on this.
Make a motion to approve staff's recommendation for the plan sign program.
And close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. I don't think we need any further discussion, I guess, so we'll vote. And the motion carries. Thank you. All right. Now, before I go on to item number 5, backtrack on my agenda and ask if there's anybody here who wishes to speak on any agenda, anything that's not on tonight's agenda. All right, I'm seeing. Go ahead and move back into our proper batting order with item number 5.
Item 5 is the site development permit for the Gdard Child Care Center on Alton Parkway. Ron Santos has a staff report for this item.
Evening, Chairman Brower, members of the proposal to construct and operate a 9,600 square foot child daycare center with a 12,000 square foot outdoor playground at the northeast corner of Alton Parkway and Rancho Parkway. The facility would be developed on a previously approved pad within an approved but not yet constructed shopping center. The Commission may recall previewing this project in July as part of its review and approval of the larger shopping center development plan, which included a 5,000 square foot multi-tenant building and a 2,000 square foot single-tenant drive-through building. The proposed facility would accommodate approximately 156 children aged 6 weeks to 6 years, 20 staff, and 9 classrooms, and operate 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Planned improvements include the building itself, which is single-story and designed to closely match the architecture of the other 2 buildings in the center. The play yard, which would be mostly turf and include play equipment, metal view fencing surrounding the facility on 3 sides, a raised walkway along the facility perimeter, and landscaping on 3 sides. The colored elevations and a materials board, by the way, I left up on the counter there in case you're interested in getting a closer look at that. As discussed in the staff report, the project is consistent with the general plan, the Baker Ranch Plan Community, and the Shea Baker Ranch Area Plan, as well as all applicable development standards and the city-wide design guidelines. Signage for the building requires a separate plan sign program approval with review by the Commission and is not part of this request. Staff is recommending approval of the project based on the findings in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Recommended conditions include a requirement that a facility staff person monitor the parking area and direct traffic during the peak drop-off and pickup times for the first 2 weeks of the facility's operations, and at any time that the director determines that traffic in the parking lot is impacting circulation in the center. My presentation on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Does anybody have for staff? Okay. I guess we will open the public hearing and seek comments from the public.
Andrew Hinman. Good evening. My name is Hinman. I represent Gdard Systems, Inc., the franchisor for the Gdard School, and the applicant, Giselle and Parina Mehta. I just wanted to thank staff and the Planning Commission's consideration for our project. We're looking forward to being in this location and being a real service to the community. I'm also here to answer questions if you have any.
Anyone?
Thank you for your consideration.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
It looks like I would guess that the demographic that you're going to draw from would be somewhat in the immediate area of the school itself, or do you plan to draw for a wider area? Or
We do a demographic study of a 3-mile radius, and that's where we're looking to typically draw from. Sometimes we have more local residents, and sometimes we have more people dropping off if they're close to work. So more than likely it would be the immediate community.
so how do you advertise to get people to come to your facility?
I represent the Site Development and Construction Department. We have our own advertising company called Brooks Advertising. We use local marketing from the franchisees, radio, sometimes television if we have enough schools in the area. So it's a wide variety of advertising.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Any additional comments? Okay. I guess I will bring it back up here to open the discussion. He's going to make.
Well, we kind of discussed this when we brought the other two projects through on the site, and I think we were anticipating the addition of this, and it looks like the Gdard School has come forth with a good plan. I like the fact that staff has anticipated that we would, of course, say, what about the drop-off? And you put that in the conditions of the approval. So I think that makes it an easy yes for me. Thank you.
I will also, I would just add, the preview day for this was actually while I was on vacation, so I probably the only guy up here who has seen this for the truly first time. And I tell you, my initial reaction was, hey, what a great idea. It's right in the middle of all these new neighborhoods. And at the same time, hey, do we really want to put a bunch of children right at such a major intersection? Is that going to be safe? And then, I do what I always do. I actually read the packet that was provided, and I did my homework, and they've done their homework. The security and fencing and everything appears to be top-notch, so that calmed my nerves, and I'm on board. So otherwise,
I think I had the same reaction you did. It looks like it's very well planned, very beautiful facility. I think it'll be a really nice addition to that area. And I think in terms of security, I think that was well done, too.
Yep.
Makes you just want to have more kids, right, Tom?
I don't need any more.
I'd like to close the public hearing and go with staff recommendation.
I'd like to second.
Okay. Are we okay on our verbiage there? Does that qualify as a motion? Okay. And then we will vote. And the motion carries. Welcome to the neighborhood. All righty. So on to number 6.
Item 6 is a site development permit for a facade remodel and patio additions and related site improvements for an existing restaurant on Muirlands. Jennifer Mansour has the staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. This item is a site development permit for the existing Avila's El Ranchito restaurant located in the Forest Ridge Plaza. Avila's El Ranchito moved into the building in the 90s and over the years has modified the original restaurant building and patio areas without city approvals, which is a zoning violation. This site development permit will remedy the zoning violations by legalizing the existing outdoor patio areas and permitting building facade modifications. Generally, the building facade will include the elimination of bamboo used in the patio area and the removal of the decorations on the south elevation facing the parking lot. The applicant is proposing to maintain all the existing landscaping and decorations facing Muirlands Boulevard. To better comply with the city's design guidelines, the new elevations will include wood fencing, framed bamboo panels, new awnings, and new tile roof as depicted on the material sample board, which I'm going to hand to Commissioner Larfine. Pass it around. Also shown on the color board is the new color, or repainting the main portions of the restaurant green with the wood beams and posts painted rust red. This project also includes the relocation of an existing Edison transformer from the patio area into the parking lot and a new handicapped accessible parking stall in the parking area directly across from the restaurant. 15 new legal parking stalls are also proposed at the rear of Forest Ridge Plaza. The project, with the inclusion of the new parking stalls, is in compliance with the city zoning code requirements, including setbacks and parking requirements. Furthermore, the project is consistent with the intent of the design guidelines and represents an aesthetic improvement over the existing unpermitted architecture. Staff has received one letter of concern regarding the project from one of the owners in the adjacent medical office building, which was provided for you on the dais. His concerns include the existing grease trap, openings facing toward the medical office building, the proposed location of the transformer, and a movable bench that the restaurant continually locates in the landing area of the handicapped accessible stall on the medical office property. I was going to just quickly provide some information regarding these issues that weren't in the staff report. The location and use of a grease trap is regulated by the county health department and is not under the purview of the city. The city has no regulations regarding those. Regarding openings facing the medical office building, the proposed project includes a new 6-foot-tall wood fence to screen the storage area, and there is one wooden gate facing the medical office building that accesses the storage area. Regarding the location of the transformer, the proposed location for the transformer is located very close to the property line between the restaurant parcel and the medical office building. Furthermore, the property line shown on the plans was not verified by a licensed surveyor. Accordingly, we've included a recommended condition that we put on the dais for you tonight that would require the applicant to provide evidence through a survey that the transformer location is on the restaurant parcel, or alternatively to relocate the transformer to a location that is clearly on the restaurant parcel, subject to approval from the Director of Development Services. Lastly, the letter describes a bench in the landing area of the handicapped accessible stall on the medical office property. This is not allowed and has been a code enforcement violation in the past. Although the restaurant owner has removed the bench in response to code enforcement violations, the bench has repeatedly been put back out. I've included on the dais an aerial view of the restaurant showing the location of the bench and a photo of the bench that was taken 2 weeks ago. This matter has been referred to code enforcement. And as you know, our Code Enforcement Division just recently got approval for administrative citations, which could include fines. We are hoping that the new citation process with fines will discourage the restaurant owner from locating the bench in the handicap accessible stall. The applicant and the architect for the project are in the audience tonight, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on this project. Thank you.
Jennifer, number 2, what did you say about the, again, sorry, I was writing something down, about the door?
Right, so I think in the letter they had some concerns about having openings facing toward the medical office building, and there is one opening. It's a part of the wood fence, and it accesses a storage area, but there's only one opening on that entire west, I think it's west elevation.
So there's currently one opening, or there is?
There will be one opening. I believe now portions of that storage area are not screened.
Okay. But there still is a potential for the door being left open and looking at toilet paper while you're getting your teeth cleaned?
Yes.
Okay. I had another question, but I'm going to have to think about it for a minute. Sorry.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions? Because I do. I'm going to go ahead and go since nobody's answering me. All right. So I have some confusion on the report itself regarding parking. It mentions that when originally built, there was 237 units required, and that portions were repaved to comply with state mandated rules, and then there was a 28 units or 28 parking spots that were built to basically replace that, and that they were unpermitted. Is part of this making new permitted? Because the math doesn't work for me.
Right. So, the parking stalls in the back, there are 29 parking stalls that are currently striped in the back, were never permitted by the city, and they do not meet city regulations. So as part of this proposal, they are removing 2 parking stalls, and they're adding additional space to the patio area. To accommodate that, they're going to legalize those parking stalls in the rear to use to meet the parking requirement. Additionally, they provided a parking study that just looked at generally the overall parking. Unfortunately, it was done when this was first submitted, so I think it got a lot of 2013 data, but that looked at the overall parking at the site, and the parking study concluded that there was not a parking demand issue at the site.
I'm just making sure, because like I said, the math is not working for me as far as making sure that we're in compliance with our own codes. So there was 237. It's not. It went down to 220. 237 were required. It went down to 224, leaving a deficiency of 13. They put the 28 in the back, but they don't count. So we still have a deficiency of 13. The proposal has 15 going in the back legalized, which gets us back to +2, but the additions require +7, so I don't think we get there. That's why I'm trying to figure out. So.
Well, staff was considering the loss of the stalls in the front parking area for accessibility as a grandfathered legal nonconforming issue.
As long as I'm told that that's proper, I'm fine with it. I just, like I said, the math wasn't working based on our current codes, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something that was going to be void as a result. So, okay. That's all I have, so if nobody else has questions for staff, we will...
One more.
Okay.
So speaking of grandfathering, this whole drain thing that another property owner is questioning, is something like that, if it's been there for a while, do you know if county health would consider that a grandfather, or can they come in and make that right?
I'm not really familiar with the health department regulations. However, I do know that because the city hasn't permitted the patios in the outdoor area, that the health department also hasn't officially permitted dining out there. So I'm not sure if that would trigger a larger grease trap, potentially. But I'm not sure what triggers a larger grease trap.
So what triggers the county health to come in and look at it and make it right?
I guess if they have a violation of some health regulation, or the initial building of the kitchen area.
So when they go to build the kitchen area, the county health will come out and make a determination on the kitchen and possibly look at the drain, or is it maybe up to the other property owner to contact the county of health and say, hey?
Well, in this instance, he's not upgrading his kitchen area. It's maintaining the same location. So, yeah, I mean, he could call the health department. If there is a violation, they can make him upgrade it.
Thank you.
Can I clarify that? I'm lost in this someplace. The county health department has not reviewed to the best of our knowledge, has not reviewed or approved that restaurant operation. Am I something here?
Just in the patio area. They've done inspections for food safety, and he has gotten I believe it was a 6-month time period to come through and get the city permits and then go through the health department permits for the outdoor patio areas.
Okay, so if we move forward with these approvals here tonight, then he must also contact the county health department. They must come out and they must approve what's been done there.
Yes, I believe in December of last year he had a hearing through the health department, and they gave him some leeway to finish this process with the city.
Okay, well, so the answer to my question is yes, they need a final approval through the county health department before they can continue operations, or they can continue their operations while they're in the process of getting that approval?
Yes, that's what they've allowed them to do.
Okay, all right. Well, since the city has no jurisdiction over this grease drain thing, we then rely on the county health to resolve that issue. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for staff?
I'd like to hear some more discussion about this location of the transformer, because that seems to be an interesting bone of contention with the adjacent property owners. So none of that can get done until the survey is completed and the surveyor and their attorneys agree on where the property line is?
Yes, I mean, the only way to know exactly where that property line is, it's an estimated property line by the architect, but the only way to confirm that is through a surveyor, licensed surveyor.
Isn't Edison going to have an easement for that, too?
He has to go through a whole process with Edison to relocate it, so I imagine there would be an easement.
I would think you couldn't do it without an easement, because they usually demand one.
Yeah, that process it would be with Edison. It'd be a private easement with Edison.
So if that doesn't happen, then what does that do to this project? Because now all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of things that now go into limbo if that transformer is not, has to get relocated, and there's a discussion about where it goes.
It's my understanding that he's been working with Edison for the last few years on the relocation of it, and it's really a matter of paying some fees and paying the relocation of it. However, it may impact the project if he couldn't relocate the transformer, because he's built the patios very close to the transformer, which are against Edison regulations.
I would think he's got electrical code problems there. Anyway.
Commissioner Ludden, the applicant or the property owner would grant the easement to Edison rather than Edison the easement to the property owner. So there isn't likely to be a problem unless the applicant is resistant to granting the easement. And I would imagine they wouldn't be, since they want to accommodate the project.
Well, unless Edison's demands for the location make it unacceptable to him. And that's possible depending on what they require, because usually they have a pretty stiff set of requirements in terms of clearances and other things around them. So, I don't know. To me, it's kind of an open issue that it puts this whole project kind of in limbo.
But is my understanding that we're kind of the first phase here, that without our approval, then we can't go to Edison. We can't go. He can't go back to the County of Health. Correct.
Correct.
So we can't get our crystal ball out and say what Edison is going to do or not do. We can't get a survey tonight and figure out if it's on one property or the other. But it's our duty to say, yay, we want to support our local business as long as he's in compliance with every agency. And we're the first agency, and so we should take some kind of action.
Well, I'm not saying we don't take action. I'm saying that should be a condition that we apply to our action, that gets resolved.
Well, it is,
Acceptable
it's
way.
proposed by staff, the condition of approval. Did you see that on the pink page?
But I think we'd have to make a motion to put that in there.
Well,
Since
yeah.
it didn't include, since it wasn't included in the original language.
Correct.
That would have to be a motion, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it also should come after we get into actual discussion.
Yes, it should.
We're just in questions to staff now. So,
Thank you.
so I don't disagree. I'm just trying to move things along. Okay, so I will ask Peggy to call our first request to speak. I'll remind everybody, as you forgot to do it on the previous applicant, but please state your name and city of residence for the record, and we use the lights on the podium to let you know when you'll have 3 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you have 30 seconds to finish up. When the red light comes on, please be done.
My name is Sal Avila. I'm one of the family members of the Avila family restaurants, El Ranchito. I live in Lake Forest. My children have gone to Lake Forest High School, to El Toro High School. They're all graduates from El Toro High School. I have we started a restaurant back about almost 20 years ago. We started, and we have grown it, and it's growing, so we're doing, it's like the city of Lake Forest. It just grows, and we're trying to figure out how we can do it. And this is why the adjustments have come along. We are supported of Lake Forest. I eat in Lake Forest. I shop in Lake Forest. So my whole life's been around Lake Forest. We support the clubs, the Toro High Schools, the baseball clubs, anything we can do for Lake Forest, we do. All our friends and most of our clients that come in there, they all live around Lake Forest. But a lot of the clients, they come from outside of El Ranchito, from outside of Lake Forest. And they tell us this is the best restaurant of the 13 restaurants that we have around Orange County. And they feel that Lake Forest restaurant is one of the biggest ones. We started making $20,000 a month. Now we're $2.5 million a year. So we're doing everything we can to support and keep the residents in Lake Forest and around the areas, and we just happen to have really good food. We've been around the restaurant for 50 years. I know the health department. I be around the health department. I deal with them all the time, the city fire rules. I've gone through my normal, I've gone to seminars. I've gone my father, and then like I said, we've been around for 50 years in the business and in 13 restaurants. So we have the experience, and sometimes certain things they take time. I'm just a little bit odd in the way to decorate a Mexican restaurant. Most of the other restaurants are different than the way my restaurant is. I don't know if you've gone there to the restaurant, but I got surfboards, I got whale bones, I got things that people normally don't have, and they told me they have never seen a restaurant that beautiful before. Maybe the outside looks a little odd with the corrugated metal, but it's something that attracts the people, and it gives life, and it gives light to Lake Forest. And I feel that we become an asset to the city of Lake Forest. Most of the times, like I said before, most of the time is that we just get the demand of persons, and sometimes we have an hour's wait. And we go to the ABC, call them every, trying to keep up with the rules, trying to be in conform with all the rules and regulations of the California laws. And I think that we do a benefit to our neighbors and the persons in Lake Forest. I know things sound a little weird the way it talks about the decorations, but I hope you understand my whole feeling, my perspective of how I want to run a restaurant. And I don't have people running. I run it myself. I have my daughters and my children, my grandchildren, who also they are living in Lake Forest and go to school in Lake Forest, but they themselves work in the restaurant. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Avila, I think we might have a couple people with questions for you before you go back to your seat. Anyone? I think it's you.
Mr. Avila, you guys have a restaurant in San Clemente?
Yes.
Nice one.
Thank you.
How come the same theme that you have here in Lake Forest wasn't used on the property in San Clemente?
Because, it's a family restaurant. We're not a franchise. Each one of us have our own mode of how to decorate, as long as we maintain the food the same quality. And I think the decor has a lot to do with the way I decorated the restaurant compared to my brother, Victor, the way he decorates his restaurant, the way he sees things.
Okay. Is it possible the city wouldn't allow you to put all that junk around the building in San Clemente?
I think that within the restaurant, I don't think there's any laws. They can tell you what you cannot do inside the restaurant. I think most is the out view around the building.
All right.
Sorry, do you operate the San Clemente restaurant?
No, my brother does.
Okay, so we need to clear. He has brothers and sisters that operate the different restaurants.
Yeah, they'll have different ideas, different thoughts.
Pardon?
My brothers, they all have different views how to decorate their own restaurant inside the restaurant.
Right, I understand that. I wanted to make sure that
Yes,
my
okay,
fellow commissioner did.
In terms of the medical center's comments about the trash containers, the dumpsters, the grease trap containers, and that sort of thing, how do you plan to deal with that in the future? Because they keep complaining that they can see it, that it's open. I know that's a common problem in a lot of shopping centers, that employees don't always keep the the trash area doors closed like they're supposed to and things like that. Do you have anything in mind to prevent that as a problem going forward? Because the problem is the backside of your restaurant really is visible to a whole lot of other businesses, and that is an issue.
Yes, and I'm planning to approach that right away. Some people say that the restaurant business is the hardest business in the world because you're there 24 hours a day. So you hear a lot of problems going on, but I love it. I've been loving it since I was a boy, and I will look into it and make sure that it's taken care of and do the best that I can right now as we starting to do the development.
Because I was thinking more, I built probably 20-some Chili's restaurants, and that was always a chronic problem with the operators, that we'd build in this nice trash area, and they would forget to close the doors, they'd forget to do this, they put the trash outside. But, I understand that's just part of running a restaurant. By the way, you do have very good food at that restaurant. We love to go there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So.
But we constantly have seminars with our employees to make sure they understand how important and how valuable it is for them to know the laws and regulations, especially of the health department.
But I was just wondering, in terms of your remodeling, have you really considered what things you could do as part of that remodel to make sure that that problem gets minimized?
I sure have.
Because obviously you can't control employees all the time.
I understand that. But
the situation with the transformer, I'll bring it up with you because you're right in the middle of it.
yeah.
What's the status of your discussion with Edison on that?
We already made a deposit. We made a $6,000 deposit with them. We're working out. At the same time, right now, as you know, in the business, we're working out with the Edison company, but at the same time, I'm working out another lease with the landlord. So we're trying to put things together so everything works out, in its own right time.
Okay. Because I understand, having been in that predicament once or twice, it's difficult, and I appreciate the difficulty of the problem you're having.
Thank you.
And it is a concern to us because where that ultimately ends up affects the visual aspect of the restaurant. So,
yeah, I will do everything in my power to do the best that I can to contribute to the problems. Not to contribute to the problems, but contribute to finish and terminate whatever is causing the problem.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, one more. A couple more. Would you consider putting an auto closer on that one door that Jennifer referred to that would be your supply closet?
Yes, I was just thinking about it when you guys were talking about it, and I'm thinking what is the best thing that I can do so it will not affect my next door neighbor, which is my doctor, my next door neighbor.
You don't want to mess up with him.
I don't want to mess with him. And so I'm thinking of what is the best thing that I can do, and I will talk to someone about that.
So an auto closer. What about having the bench that I understand you use maybe for somebody to smoke outside?
It's just a look.
I know it's a look, but could we maybe make it more than a look and make it a permanent structure where you actually embed it into the concrete, or you somehow tie it down so that, my guess is probably somebody comes and they say, I don't want to sit back here, I'm going to move it, or employees move it, or guests move it. Can you make that a structure that doesn't move?
I will make it happen tomorrow. I'll make sure that it's cut off, taken out, and then we'll do whatever is right.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I have a question for you. You've made a statement, and I think that's quite excellent. You have a very thriving business to go from $20,000 a month to $200,000 a month in your gross sales. I commend you for that.
Thank you.
I've lived in this city for 28 years. I have not frequented your restaurant, but just based on what I've heard tonight, I guess I like Mexican food, so I will come and I'll do that. But I do have a question as to, and I'd love your answer, why did it take you this long to get before us?
I have no idea. But no, the deal like we talked about is just so many problems in the restaurant. And Jennifer asked me to come down, and I go, I'm going to come down this time and talk about it and see what I can do and what is the way you guys see it. But again, I have no idea.
I know your business has been growing leaps and bounds, and so that certainly would keep you preoccupied, but I think there's somewhat of a history of code violations over the years, and I'm glad that you're here tonight. I'm just disappointed that it took this long to get here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, so we want to make sure we get all of the issues resolved
Yeah, I'll be here more often from here on.
Yeah, so, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, real quick, one last one. I'm going to go myself. I think you may have already answered this. I wanted to ask you about the location of the bench. It doesn't seem to be functional, really. It's I think you said it's a look, it's a decoration, more so than a bench. Just looking at the photos that Jennifer provided us, it certainly is. It's a cute little bench. It just seems like it's in the wrong spot. If there's somewhere on the property that it could be moved that doesn't interfere with the handicap parking, that would be ideal. So that's just my observation on that issue. And then a further observation, as a restaurant manager myself, and maybe to give some context to my colleagues who don't manage restaurants for a living. When you go, it was touched on earlier about the process with the county health department. Your grease trap, basically, when you build out the kitchen, they inspect to make sure you have one and that it's appropriate size, and et cetera, et cetera. When you go from $20,000 a month to $200,000 a month, and your grease trap is still the same size, it may not be able to handle the volume. It may just be a matter of having to, the health department won't come back and check it again unless people are complaining. I'm not encouraging necessarily everybody run out and call the health department. I'm just saying, typically, once it's approved, it's approved. It's a permanent fixture, and it may just be a matter of maintenance and having it drained much more frequently than you're currently doing in order to make sure that the neighbors are happy.
Oh, yes. The health department comes by about every 3 months, every 6 months, and we constantly, wherever they tell us, we'll do.
All right.
Now, does that grease trap solely service your restaurant, or does it service other restaurants?
No, it serves my restaurant.
Just yours only?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. Typically, they are separate grease traps for each kitchen, just because of the way they work. But because they tie into the drain lines from that kitchen, and I just know that with mine, we've had issues where we've had people come and say, hey, we can smell your grease trap, and we look, and sure enough, the guy missed his pickup the month before, and we have to get on the phone and say, hey, come drain this thing, please. It's causing problems, and it's usually just a maintenance issue.
Yes, I agree.
So, and so it's just a matter of making sure that we're being good neighbors and
That's right.
staying on top of it. So I guess now I will say thank you.
Well, thank
we'll
you
actually
for hearing
sit,
me.
and we'll call our next speaker.
Gerald Muir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Jerry Muir. I'm a resident of San Juan Capistrano, and I'm the architect for Mr. Avila. And I will be assisting him any way I possibly can to resolve the issues that you've brought up. And I want to especially thank staff for working with us. Jennifer's been great, trying to make sure we get these things resolved. With that, I have no other comments other than if you have any questions of me and how I can answer some of the issues you might have in your mind, I'm sure here to do it and be helpful.
It seems like you've got quite a few things going on in this project all at the same time that they all seem to have a different effect on the outcome. What's your timeline for getting this resolved, and what do you think your 3 top priorities are?
Well, I've got to get a survey to make sure the property line's correct. That can occur almost immediately. That should resolve the transformer issue, and then I'll have to talk with Mr. Avila as far as the fencing and the openings to make sure that gets resolved. I think per the requirements, we have to have construction plans back in before December 10th, so we'll meet that deadline also. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any additional requests?
Alex Duran.
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having this forum. I'm a 7-year resident of Forest, and I frequent El Ranchito quite often, and I bring friends and family from out of town, and everybody enjoys it. I'm also happy that he's actually going to upgrade the restaurant, because pretty much that corner is a train wreck. Other than Walgreens, I think that will be an improvement. Maybe it sets precedence for the rest of the mall. My only concern is the parking that is on page 137. I'll propose 15 spaces in the back. Now, I live right behind there on that alleyway, and I've had many issues over many years with churches and trash and people urinating on the wall and fighting and drag racing and everything in the sort. So my only concern is the 15 spots that are there, and consider not having them there because it just creates a mess. Also, maybe we can consider demolishing that old Chuck E. Cheese building or something, because that's a train wreck too. Nothing seems to hold there as far as businesses. Maybe they can make parking there, but that's my only comment about this proposal.
If you could do me a favor, and just so we have your name and your voice on the record, you came up, you said thank you, you said how long you lived here, you never said your name.
Okay. My name is Alex Duran, and I'm a 7-year resident of Lake Forest.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Osborne.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I am Bruce Osborne. I currently reside in Laguna Beach. And can you all hear me? This is as loud as my voice gets. I was a general partner when the medical office building, currently condominiums, was developed in the early 80s. I practiced in those condominiums. My orthodontic practice was there for 30 years, although I gave up the practice a few years back. I remain an owner of 2 of the units in the condominium development. My issues, I think, have probably been well aired, so let me go on to my requests for remediation of the things I'm concerned about. Professional survey of the, I wrote westerly, that was a mistake. It would be the easterly property line of parcel A, which is where the medical office condominium is, and staff has recommended that be a condition. Then there are 2 issues with grease containers, and I think the Commission may be a little bit confused on it. There's a grease trap that's got to go in the sink drain. We discussed that, the size. You expressed your experience with it, Mr. Chairman. Then there's also a storage facility of some kind outside the restaurant near Dr. Van Vranken's medical office, and that's not a grease trap. That's grease storage for used
it's
grease,
recycled
as far as
grease.
I can tell. I think they take a pot that's been used to fry tortillas or chips or what have you, and it's evening, they're closing down, they take it out there and they dump it in that thing, is the way I think it occurs.
Yeah, it's actually required that we have recycled.
It's unsightly, it stinks, and the concrete around it is a mess, and some of that concrete is on my property. I'd like to see that thing for aesthetic reasons. I don't presume to suggest what the specifications should be, but for aesthetic reasons, I'd like to see it moved to a site that it doesn't become an eyesore for my medical offices. Then there's the grease trap. You discussed that. Out of my can, I know one's got to be in there. And the main sewer for the shopping center, every 4 or 5 years gets plugged. And the water district has got to come out there with their enormous machine. They blow it out for 500 feet, clear down to Ridge Route Boulevard, and it works for a while. But then it gets clogged up again, sure as can be, and we'll be dealing with it again. So that is probably not an issue before the Commission tonight, but it is something that I'm going to get a call on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, try to get a plumber out there with the ability to clean out a 6-inch line 400 feet long. Not easy.
Wow, never heard an audible one.
Perhaps one of the other speakers would allow me to use his 3 minutes if the chairman would allow it.
Technically, we're not, I don't think we're allowed to defer that, are we? But I actually have a question for you before you go. Because I know that you have addressed in the letter some of these same things, but I wanted to, if you... Okay, thank you. Just for my own clarification, Jennifer, can you give him a copy of this for a second? In the,
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to figure out, picture, there's the kind of the red box in the corner behind the handicap spot. Is that the
Yes, sir.
the
That's
grease trap you're talking about, or the above ground recycled grease
Yeah.
bin? Okay.
You'll also see the bench there.
Right.
Jennifer commented that that bench comes and goes.
Okay.
And Mr. Avila knows it's a violation, has known throughout this entire process, yet there it remains.
Okay.
Tells you something about why I'm concerned about future unpermitted activities.
I understand, sir. Unfortunately, we can't really prognosticate the future. We can try to plan for it, but that's about all we can do. So
I'm hoping to plan
So,
for it,
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
All right.
because I can predict the future, and there will be additional unpermitted activities there.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, sir. Sir, any other speakers?
Brent, having a little trouble with your last name. Bowling.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Brent Bowling. I'm a dentist in Lake Forest for the last 37 years. I am one of the condominium owners in that medical building, dental building that's next door to the restaurant. Overall, I've been very pleased with both the fact that the restaurant will be brought into code compliance and also with all of the concerns that have been raised here this evening. We do have ongoing issues, the grease trap, the grease drainage into that line is one of the main things. And I'm here this evening just to try to make sure that we get that survey so that the new transformer relocation goes on their property and not ours. Mr. Avila is a lessor in the center, whereas we own property and areas in the parking lot. So we're just here to watch out for our rights. That's all I have to say, other than I think you're doing a terrific job. So.
Anybody have questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For the speaker that just left, or? Okay. Okay. Any other speakers? We'll bring the applicant back again. Okay.
Robert Wheeler.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Wheeler, and I am a dentist, also practicing in the Forest Ridge Medical Plaza. I live in Lake Forest, and I have lived in Lake Forest since 1987, since before it was Lake Forest. And I'm here tonight just to support my colleagues in my building. I am a condominium owner in that building, and I just echo all the comments that have been made here by Dr. Osborne and in his letter to you, Jennifer. So I don't have anything more in particular to say, but that's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, and I have eaten at Avila's, and they have very good food.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Peter Kellen.
My name is Peter Kellen. I am a dentist in the medical building next to Avila's, and I've been in Lake Forest since 1971 when it was El Toro. We certainly have had a good relationship with Avila's next door to us. But over the years, we've had some issues with the very topics that were brought up tonight, and I was very pleased to hear the commissioner's questions because it dealt mostly with what we have dealt with over the years, to make sure they stay in compliance, have it look nice, watch the grease, and our sewer lines, which effectively are usually an issue because of grease buildup. And then we end up having it down on our property because it all runs, as the old saying goes, it runs downhill. And we happen to be that downhill. So thank you very much for your attention tonight. And as a resident here, I look forward to seeing how this works out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Heiko Peschel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners out there. This is probably only my second time ever in front of you. I usually harass the city council, so you guys are mostly spared. Name is Heiko Peschel. I live in Foothill Ranch. Wife and I moved to El Toro in '83, moved out of El Toro in '83, in '92, right after it became Lake Forest, we moved to Foothill Ranch. So I've been in the area for a long time, been a volunteer with the city. I'm on the city 25th anniversary committee. I try to do my thing for the city. I like Avila's El Ranchito, have eaten there. I agree that there are things that need to be done, hopefully with the city and code enforcement, of whom I know a few of the folks there, can agree to work this out. There are parts here, there are obviously things that the county has to do. They have to approve all the modifications. They have to make sure the grace trap is good. Sal has to work on the bench, the closure of the gate, and obviously the surveying of the property line is also important. But other than that, I think we're moving forward. Thank you. Any questions? No.
Thank you for your time and your service.
Ken Piata.
My name's Ken Piotr. I'm a homeowner, a little different flair. I live on Blue Ridge, which is right behind the Forest Ridge Plaza, and of course, that's where Avila is located. And I've lived there for 38 years, so I've seen, the property before it was even a mini mall or whatever you want to call it. Basically, my main concern is the parking. The parking along the wall has been a problem, mainly because of noise. And I also want this board to remember, because I've been through this a number of times, I've talked to that lady a couple of times in the past, the homes on Blue Ridge, in some cases, are no further away than 45 feet from the majority, if you look at the picture, of many of these businesses. Now, Mr. Avila has a restaurant. It used to be a Taco Bell. He's probably, I'd say, about 250 feet away. I'm concerned about the outdoor patio. I can hear everything they do. Cinco de Mayo is a nightmare. Okay, but I'm a resident. I hear it. I go along with it. He makes $200,000 a month, and I'm losing money on my property because of this center. You say there is no parking problem. I disagree with that. The reason I disagree with it, I've actually talked to some of these owners when we had that fiasco. Jerry has been on this board with the church that took 3 years to resolve. There is a parking problem there. Chuck E. Cheese left because of poor parking and they couldn't expand. That restaurant has been vacant for going on 3 years. It's vacant now. If you get in a tenant, none of you guys, but the owner, that would affect Mr. Avila. And I went over there to talk to him when we had the church problem. He wasn't there. I've talked to the lady at Burgertown. You put another restaurant in there that's the size of Chuck E. Cheese, and you will have a parking problem. And one of the reasons they want to come around to the back is to get more parking. And what I was told by code enforcement 3 months ago, they're going to restripe that from Diagonal the parallel, and you're going to lose spots back there. I was told some of these business owners are not happy with that. So what I'm hearing here tonight, I don't agree with. And I know myself, people on Blue Ridge, I'm one. For some reason, the rest of these homeowners don't come here, but I do. My fellow neighbor, Mr. Duran, has. And we're just voicing our opinion. I believe this whole shopping center needs to be redeveloped from the ground up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. I think there was a couple questions I know I had for the applicant based on some of the things we've heard. So if we could get the applicant to come back up for a moment, Mr. Avila. And I'll let Commissioner Ludden start.
On your recycled grease container, I've noticed that it sits there at the top of a ramp. It goes down to the parking lot. There's a concrete slab next to it. Looks like it goes to next to some kind of a gate. When you wash the area around that container, where does the water go?
What we do is we get a steamer, we wash it around, and then we have a vacuum. That we get the vacuum and we vacuum all the water so that eventually it will go back into the grease trap that we have inside the restaurant, and we'll clear it out and go back into the main drain. As I was hearing you guys speaking, you got to remember this Burger Town, all the other restaurants also go to the main drain that goes down through my restaurant, through the main drain to the next property where the dentists are. So all this grease goes through there, but I have not seen really a big problem to it. But anyways.
My question is, this goes back to my restaurant building experience. When we built areas for those recycled containers, we always made sure we had a concrete curb around them so that the water could not get to the parking lot in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
We did that because, number one, the EPA was pretty much on our case about it. And if you were a larger restaurant chain, they'd probably be after you. But that is an issue in my mind, that if it's left that way and if somebody doesn't do it quite right, that water goes out in the parking lot, and really you can't have that.
No, because it goes onto the ocean. And I've been surfing all my life, and I'm a pro. I won't want anything to go into the ocean.
So I guess one of my suggestions to you is that if you're going to remodel, do something to make sure that water does not get out, period.
I'm very conscious of that.
I mean, steaming in a vacuum is fine, but, it only takes one employee to make a mistake, and then you've got a problem, and then it's hard to back out of that. And it's also hard to keep it clean the way it is, because it's hard to trap it. So
yeah.
It doesn't look like it looks like there's a discoloration around it, so I'm not sure how much effective that steamer has really been, but that'd be something I would really like you to consider taking care of, because that's a biggie.
Oh,
okay. Anyone else? Okay. My question was actually on the same thing, a slightly different take. In the picture that's provided here, it actually looks like one of the things that was brought up by several people. It looks like the top is wide open. This is, not only does it let the smell out, but it also, when it allows contamination into the oil that somebody presumably is coming and collecting to recycle, and so it's really not good for anybody that it's left open. And then just a suggestion, I don't think we have the ability to mandate it. Maybe we do. I would love to see. We use in my restaurant. It's a mobile. It's on wheels, big giant casters. It's a plastic box, similar in size to what you have there, but it's and it actually, you may not have room inside to move yours inside, but once the fences go up, assuming that we approve the proposed changes, I would like to see something that requires that it be behind the fencing. And so whether that's by replacing the existing one with something that's movable or not. I mean, we keep ours indoors. We roll it out when the guy comes. He bumps up. He drops a hose in it. He sucks everything out. We roll it back in. There's no mess, no fuss. And if it does spill for some reason, it's on the floor in my storeroom. It goes down the drain through the grease trap, just like you said. And so
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with maintenance.
Right.
And that's what I was looking at this morning, too, because you got to be on top of the cooks, into the cooks' assistants, to make sure that when they put the grease on the trap, they have to make sure they close it, make sure it's clean. So it's just a maintenance that you got to be there and constantly be, and the managers have to be constantly, and I'm on top of them, that they have to be there to make sure that all these things are done. Sometimes because they're so busy, it goes off. But it's just my responsibility to make sure that they don't do that.
Okay. Anyone else have questions at this point?
I have a question for the architect. Hi. I'm looking at the view from the parking lot toward the kitchen entry and the rear dining patio. This here.
Yes.
And I see that there's the new wood siding there. Is that a wood fence?
Yes.
Where does this grease trap go when you put this new fencing up? Or siding up? Or not grease trap?
The recycled oil.
The recycled, yeah, sorry.
The actual operation,
Because it looks like it would be right there right now.
correct. No, I'd have to look into that, ma'am. I couldn't answer that question. But we'll figure out a way to solve that one. Because all we were doing is replacing the exterior surfacing, and as far as that actual operation of the restaurant and the grease trap and the recycle, I didn't consider that. So that will have to be considered, obviously.
So the fencing that you have here doesn't take into consideration, it's just for the outdoor patio, and it doesn't take into consideration the recycled grease red box that we see here.
That is correct.
So we could still see a red box sitting out here.
No, but that's what you don't want, so I've got to solve that problem.
All right, so maybe a condition of approval will be a hidden red box?
Or just some kind of, fencing or a curbed area with fencing around it so that gets resolved. So yes,
I mean,
I've taken a note here that we will address it and we will solve it.
Well, I like that good, honest word. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody heard.
It's on record. I can't deny it.
I certainly, as one restaurant manager to another, don't want to ever tell somebody else how to do their job. You run your restaurant the way that you think is best. That it's just a matter of, like I said earlier, it's finding ways to be good neighbors and making sure that that we're doing our job of addressing the concerns and saying, hey, as long as it's out of view, I think that would be a huge plus for your neighbors. So,
may I ask one more question of the Dr. Osborne?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. So you started listing some concerns, and you mentioned, number one, the Easterly survey that you were looking forward to, the grease container, recycled grease. I didn't get item 3, and maybe that was because that big red light came on.
Well, I've got two item 3s. One is my request and one is my complaints.
Can I hear that request?
The request, show on the plans location of the grease trap, and number 2, show on the plans the location of the used grease container, which is the red box.
What we've been discussing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you didn't have anything beyond that? I thought there was one more item that you had a concern about that I didn't hear.
Item number 4, perhaps. I don't want any gates or doorways or other access on the westerly elevation, because those are the things that get left open, and we see mops, we see the toilet paper.
But if we have an auto closed door, that would.
They'll put a doorstop under it.
And then you call the city in, and they come out, and there can be a code violation.
But the doorstop is gone by then.
Put it out there right before they come. Take pictures. Okay, so there was no other items. I just didn't. I felt like you had some concerns, and as a property owner, I wanted to make sure that we were fully informed of your particular concern.
Well, we talked about restriping the parking spaces such that the handicap is at the west end, close to the ramp to Dr. Van Vranken's office, where unpermitted activities cannot encroach on it.
Okay.
Right now, it's at the east end of that group of parking spots, next to where the bench goes, and there's no way that bench can be put in there with that wall where it is and not encroach on the hash marked part of the handicap parking spot. Your recommendation that it be secured so it can't be removed does not solve that problem. If that bench is there, it is encroaching. So I requested that a nook be put in the wall to allow that bench to be put more in an easterly direction where it will not encroach on the hash marks.
And Mr. Avila said he would remove it tomorrow, so why don't you check it in the afternoon and see if it's gone?
Mr. Avila, for the last 2 years while this matter has been in process, has known that the bench is in violation. It remains there.
Oh, he's going to do it tomorrow, I know.
So my efforts have been to immunize the west exposure of the remodeled facility such that it is kind of not conducive to unpermitted activities that intrude either aesthetically, functionally, or odoriferously on the medical office building.
Okay.
I'm trying to immunize it, which is why I have requested that no doorways or gates be put on the east elevation. They'll be left open and they will have the most unattractive parts of the restaurant's activities there, because that's as far as they can get to the back, what you might call the back of a restaurant. It happens to be the front of our medical office building.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I don't expect you to know the answer, but I'm going to ask you. We were told there were prior code violations with this property. Were they significant or minor, and over what period of time?
Most of the code violations have been with the expansion of the patio area. I think in about 2006, he expanded the patio area and worked with code enforcement, and they actually eliminated it, and it's come back since then. Also, the bench, in 2012, we had them remove the bench, and is obviously now back. We did have our building inspector and a fire inspector go out in 2012 and look at the property and made sure, we actually issued some electrical permits just for safety reasons for the exterior patio, and made sure there were no health and kind of safety concerns. But most of it has to do with just building things without city approvals.
Thanks, Jennifer. So, concerns that Mr. Piotr had with regards to parking, are those parking spots, they're there now, you say they're not to code?
Correct.
Are they grandfathered in?
No, those were never legally permitted.
And there were how many spaces?
29 spaces in the rear. The parking study that was done by LSA did not include those parking spaces in their study.
So do you require them with this new, help me, why are we putting them in then if it wasn't included in the study?
Oh, the study is basically supplementary to it. The code, but they need to have the additional parking stalls to meet the city's zoning code requirement, and the study was basically to support the decision to allow them in the rear so far from the restaurant.
All right.
But the study on its own would not allow a variance for the parking.
I guess I'm kind of confused about who owns the parking lot. Who owns the parking lot?
So there are, I believe, 3 different owners, including the association who has numerous owners. Saeed Shokarian owns most of the center, including the restaurant building and the main multi-tenant buildings. The 7-Eleven is owned by 7-Eleven, and then the building with the medical office is owned by the association.
So this is a common area parking lot?
But there is reciprocal parking for the whole entire site. There's actually, I think, 6 different parcels.
I guess I'm confused about how we can condition the parking if there's so many other common tenants in there that are in control of it.
Well, there's reciprocal parking for the entire center. So we don't look at it lot by lot. We look at the overall numbers.
Well, if you've ever been there on a Tuesday night, that parking lot is a nightmare. I mean, it is absolutely a nightmare. And the more I sit here thinking about this, the more I hear about this, the more the parking becomes a bigger concern to me because obviously, depending on the time of day, there's different tenants that are consuming the parking lot. But I know from personal experience, I mean, you can park a long ways away from the restaurant if you're going to go visit there on a Tuesday night, and probably on a Friday night or a Saturday night. And it seems to me like the bigger parking issue here that it sounds to me like it's really not being addressed very well. So that's my only comment.
Yeah, Jennifer, I'm looking at page 164. I'm looking at a matrix of shopping center joint use parking, and for that entire center, it says that there's 307 spaces that are required. And going back to what the LSA report talks about, 254 spaces, and I'm kind of sharing the confusion that Chairman CJ has here. These numbers don't seem to make sense to me, and I'm trying to put it all together. What am I missing?
The table, I believe, is showing the overall parking, but if you read through the study, it explains that there's a synergy of different uses that use parking stalls at different times, and that's how the parking works. And they did surveys. Again, it was in, I believe, 2013, at different times throughout a couple days, and showed how many parking spaces were still available.
Well, all the data I'm looking at here says those surveys were conducted in 2011.
Yeah, but what she's saying is that if there's not going to be too many people getting their teeth cleaned at 7 o'clock at night.
I understand that.
So that would leave open those spaces.
Right. I understand those things. I'm just wondering, why is it that there's a total of 254 spaces available, and
the building was built in the 80s. I believe I have kind of a history of the entitlements there, but there have been, I think, a few parking modifications that were allowed. The big one is changes over the years in striping and the changes due to accessibility, ramps and parking stalls that have decreased the number of parking stalls. This does not meet our current standards. We went back into the history of all the entitlements and what was approved all through the county, and based on the number of parking stalls and square footages. But it would not meet, and so the table you're looking at there is our current standards, which it does not meet. And actually, most of our commercial centers do not meet that, the older centers.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm going to jump in with another follow-up question. Oh, yeah, we're done with. There was nobody else waiting to speak. Okay, good. Sorry. Yes, we will close the public hearing and officially begin board discussion. I'm trying to find a page number here. It's figure 1 of the LSA report. I can't find a page number on my, it looks like 2 actually. It's got all the yellow and red and parking zones and whatnot, just so we're all looking at the same thing. Along Muirlands, where the 1030 is, that's the restaurant footprint?
That's part of the medical office complex. The one that says 2,619 is the restaurant.
Okay, so, right, so in that corner right there, that little jut out where it says 1030, in that little corner of the parking lot is what I understand the doctor to be asking about striping so that the handicapped is at the other end instead of the end that it's at. And I'm curious, with all the different breakdowns of who controls what, if we can even require that. It kind of piggybacks on something that Commissioner Ludden said, but I think it's a great idea. I don't I'm not positive that we can make that a condition of approval to do that, because I don't know that, I mean, it's the parking spots that are right in front of the medical building. Wouldn't the medical building be the ones that own it? And so I'm confused.
Could you repeat the question? I was
Okay,
discussing Hungdale.
Yes.
It's for Hungdale.
In the section that's right in that little clump of parking right there, along the red box, it says 1,030. I'm assuming that's the square footage of that particular structure. And I can see a little bit, it's blurred out on here because I've zoomed way in, but where the handicap spot is right up next to Avila's.
Right under the zero.
Yes. I think moving the handicap spot is to under the one would be potentially a good thing. I don't have a problem with that request. I'm just not sure the logistics of how we dictate that if we don't have,
Yeah, can we condition,
if the applicant's not the owner of that chunk of property.
can we condition the relocation of the handicap stall on the adjacent property, which has reciprocal parking with this site?
Yes, thank you.
I think we would also want to take a closer look at that. There's some regulations as to the slope on the handicap stalls, and they're very, very precise. He mentioned the site is sloping away and it's going downhill. So it could be a much more difficult undertaking from an engineering perspective to relocate it. It's really a three-dimensional
So maybe
call.
an ADA thing more so than a city thing.
Yes.
All right, that's fine. For me, it's not a deal breaker, but if we can find ways to reasonably accommodate all requests, I think we should. I just don't know if we can on that one. So, all right. Does anybody else have any?
I have another question. Again, Jennifer, if you don't know the answer, it's okay. We heard that the property is leased, the building is leased. Do we have any idea how many years remain on that lease?
Sal can speak to that, and I believe he's negotiating a new lease right now.
Well, right now we're negotiating a lease with the owner of the property. We have 2 years left on the lease, and we're trying to negotiate another 20-year lease. And that's why we're working with him so that I can do all of the spend the money spent on the property. That's what I have left. So it's going to be an amendment to the lease. It will be a 10-year lease with the 5-year options.
Now, I'm assuming that this is a compromise between your interest and the interest of the city.
Of course.
What do you estimate is the value of these improvements you're making?
I will think probably about $60,000 or $70,000.
How is the lighting for the parking zone 5?
I'm not sure. I haven't been out there at night. I imagine some of the residents behind might be able to speak to it if you want them to.
It looks like Zone 5
Mr. Viad,
doesn't
do you know
have
if there's
parking.
lighting in behind the, I guess that would be the parking that would be the backyards of the Mr. Piotr Street Bluebird? Well, we have to, wait, Mr. Piotr, I'm sorry, you can't speak at this point, sorry. Okay, well, I'd have to, the public hearing's closed, but I can ask the applicant the question, right? All right.
So you can ask him the question, but he should come to the microphone.
Mr. Piotr, I can ask Mr. Piotr the question, or I can ask Mr. Avila?
In theory, we can.
Can I
see
ask
information
anybody the
from it,
question?
right?
The planning commission has discretion to bring the applicant back, and if the planning commission wants to take more questions or more comments, the commission can reopen the public hearing and reclose it.
Okay.
But if I just ask the applicant a question, is that reopening the public hearing? Because we just did ask him a question. Did we reopen it?
That does not.
Okay, well, let me just ask the applicant first, then, and hopefully he can answer it.
while he's coming up, just for clarification, is there parking in Zone 5 or Zone 3? I'm looking,
The new parking will be in Zone 5.
okay, which at the moment, it's showing on here as 0 because they didn't count the existing
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Because they were not legally established.
I'll make sure I'm looking at the right part of the map.
Are you familiar with the lighting in Zone 5?
On 5 in the back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the back. No, I'm not, because there's other shops, they're right in continuance to the back. So I have no idea whether at night it is lighting back there.
Too bad you didn't ask Mr. Piotr before you came up to the podium. Maybe if you turned around and asked him, then you could answer my question.
Is the lighting?
We'd have to open up the public hearing again. Do you want to do that?
But I have never had any complaints regarding it. It's for the first time I ever heard that.
Well, complaints about...
About the lighting, or about the
I'm only
noise.
questioning if there is lighting. I didn't complain.
Okay.
At this point, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, as long as I have some consensus from those around me, I'll reopen the public hearing for the purposes of allowing a resident who has direct knowledge to address the question. So, okay.
Okay, well, the one question that I'm asking, so be
It's
careful.
parking.
No, it's lighting in that parking area.
Okay,
Is there
well, it's-
currently lighting in that parking
Right,
area?
and what you have back there are what I would call security lights, and they are focused downward. And the reason they're focused downward is because at one time they were focused out toward what we would call the alley or the parking. And at that time, there was no parking there. There were trees and a little median. Okay, the neighbors on Blue Ridge, I was one of them, it shined right in my bedroom. And I'm telling you, I'm 45 feet from that wall. So that's why we objected. It went to the police. Code enforcement came out. I think it was, at that time it was Mr. Hill, I can't remember. He actually came into my bedroom, and he saw the lights. So lighting is a big problem. You also have the security. That goes on and off if a dog goes by, car goes by.
By security, you mean what?
It's a light that goes
A motion light?
that is supposed to be for a video camera or cameras, that if there's any motion, the lights go on, and apparently some video camera takes photographs or video or whatever's going on in that alleyway. And that light will go on and off, on and off. I've gotten used to it, plus my neighbor has a huge big tree that blocks it.
Do you think that lights need to be brighter?
No, the lights need to be the way they are. They need to be focused down. We've already had one neighbor who has since moved. Matter of fact, he used to live in the house where Mr. Millen lived on Blue Ridge many years ago, and he complained. So this idea there's no complaints about lighting is false.
I don't know that we've discussed complaints about lighting
Well,
tonight.
I'm just saying there's complaints about lighting, and at a certain time it had nothing to do with parking. Now you have cars back there. You have probably 18 that are from Molly Maiden that are just parked there. And I talked to code enforcement about this, and he told me, the one gentleman, that they were going to restripe this. This is what code enforcement told me 2 months ago. And the business owners don't like it because they're going to go from a diagonal setup where they have a lot more spaces to parallel, which is the way it was when they first put it in there, and you have a lot less.
Right.
And I'm amazed that somehow this parking is even involved with this restaurant, because this restaurant has nothing to do with parking in the back. So why is it there? That's what Mr. Luden brought up, and I agree with him. I don't see how it fits.
Okay, thank you.
So
I really appreciate you answering the question. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask a follow-up question of Jennifer, just to clarify, for my own knowledge and for anybody who's still confused like I might be a little bit. The Zone 5 parking is not directly related to the restaurant per se. It's more on the overall parking for the lot, for the
Correct.
for the complex.
Correct.
And so because they're the ones asking for changes, they get to be the ones to foot the restrike.
Yes.
Right. And that, okay, just want to make sure that I'm on the right page. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Or I would like to reclose the public hearing at this time, and thank all for their comments. All have been appreciated and valued. And do we have any additional discussion, or does somebody want to bring a motion one way or another?
I want to ask Commissioner Ludden, you made a comment, I think Tuesday nights the parking lot is jam-packed. Okay, so
It's Taco Tuesday, and they have a promotion on Taco Tuesday, which we go and enjoy.
Okay, so, I'm all for Taco Tuesday. I'm sure that I'll be willing to brave the crowds just to go down there sometime. But I look at, according to the parking study on page 159, it takes a 2,619 square foot restaurant, and it says that we need 10.6 spaces per 1,000 square feet, so that the restaurant needs 27.8 spaces. Taco Tuesday probably runs from, 5 p.m. until whatever, maybe 6 p.m., whatever that is.
Unless you had a margarita, because that's better than the food.
Okay.
So you have to stay a little longer.
Well, my point is that a lot of those businesses that are there are not going to have anybody using the spaces, but I'm hearing from one of our fellow commissioners that parking is pretty much unavailable. So either the demand is far greatly exceeds the ratio that we have, and so that, we can't use the ratio to try to determine what's really needed in terms of parking in this center. We're kind of in a quandary here, aren't we?
Well, Tom, have you ever tried parking in the back? Did you know there was parking back there?
I had no idea there was parking in the back.
I think that's where the problem lies, is people don't know it's back there.
Well, but I'm not sure people would tend to park there anyway, because you can't see it, it's way out of the way.
It's lit. And I also would think that if there's any restaurant, Mexican restaurant in the town, that on a Tuesday night, the parking is difficult. So I don't think this is an unusual problem.
There's another Mexican restaurant in the same parking lot area, and it's not nearly as busy as El Rancho.
Okay, let me rephrase that. I would say that all good Mexican restaurants in town that have Taco Tuesdays is probably going to have the same parking problem.
I'm not going to debate that that's the case. I'm just saying that we've got a standard by which we're trying to evaluate that doesn't seem to be a proper standard based on the popularity of this particular restaurant. So how do we try to determine, or do we even need to take that into consideration, being that Tuesday is very popular, but I can't imagine you do $200,000 a month based on Taco Tuesday, so that has to tell me that there's a large number of other evenings that there's more than 27.8 parking spaces needed by this particular business, is all I'm saying.
Well, I think because of the restaurant's popularity, it does distort the study. And I think that's part of the problem, because in my experience driving around there and looking at it, if I put my planning commissioner hat on, by far and away, Avila's restaurant is by far the biggest user of the parking lot. You can tell by looking at it that that's where most of the people are coming from. They're not going to most of the other businesses, and there's no reflection of that, but it's just the nature of the situation is that. And I think that the thing that's fortunate is the fact that it happens late in the day. You don't see a lot of traffic from the medical dental offices and things like that, which is probably the only thing that saves it.
Yeah. One of the things, we've got a vacant business in there that has been a restaurant operation that's vacant now. I think at one point it was it was an unofficial church for a while. But if we get an application that says that they want to put another restaurant in there, that's going to create some pressure in that particular location, especially if it's a restaurant that has a good attraction. Obviously, the existing restaurant that's there has the ground floor, so that's a good thing. and we like to have successful businesses. But at some point in time, and the comment was made, tear the building down and make it more parking, I find maybe there's some validity there. But we don't dictate what people do there. You know, we've got a potential restaurant site that's within very short distance, and if a restaurant does go in there, that's going to create mass havoc in parking. That's all. It's just my observation.
I want to add to that, Jerry. I have personal experience there with the Dragon Buffet at lunchtime. It was very difficult to find a parking space, and I understand the area of the old Dragon Buffet is 8,000 square feet, somewhere in that area.
Looks about right.
And
the
it
whole
already
building is
has
20,000.
kitchen facilities there, so it's likely to attract another another restaurant. I'm having a hard time seeing how that's going to work.
And then I kind of wonder if that's on our agenda tonight. To suppose who's going to come into that. We're not the landowner. I don't know that we have a crystal ball, and I just don't think this is part of our discussion.
I disagree.
We usually do.
Yeah, we usually do. I think we have to have at least some sensitivity to what in the past has been the business operation in that center, and that the reality is that it can happen again in the future. And if that does happen again in the future, then we will be sitting here looking, because we can't create more parking spaces there. We're just not going to create them out of thin air. So, we've got to think about that too.
Perhaps if I could just offer some perspective here for the Commission. First of all, we have a shopping center, and we have an overall shopping center ratio, and that's 1 per 200. So that's essentially what we looked at, is how can these expansion of the patio be accommodated when we take a shopping center and we add some additional square footage. And as Jennifer explained, that's the analysis we went through. And with the conversion of the spaces in Zone 5 to legal spaces that we can count, the center does meet the city's overall shopping center ratio of 1 per 200 that we apply universally to all shopping centers. That's the city's parking ratio. The study that was also turned in gave further information. A study like this we would typically use if an applicant is requesting shared parking, if they can't meet the 1 per 200. So a study, this was just supplemental information that we looked at to show us that we do have different uses peaking at different times. They're not using shared parking to make this work with the shopping center ratio. And because we have employment areas nearby, we have concentrations of employment. When you have shopping centers that have several food uses at lunchtime, things are big during that lunch hour. And we see evidence of that throughout the city. But the shopping center ratio, again, unless we have a power user like a health club, the shopping center ratio, 1 per 200, which can be accommodated. And I think the study is telling us we've got uses that peak at night. We have people that are open on the weekend and closed on the weekend. There's a variety of things. So a little bit different than how we sometimes use this information, but I thought maybe that would help kind of provide some background on it.
Well, I have to agree with an earlier comment, and actually an earlier agenda item tonight, for the consent calendar. Or no, actually it was the plan sign program. It wasn't the consent calendar, but at any rate, I would love to see this property go the way of Gateway. But just like it took forever for Gateway to get there, because we couldn't dictate it then, we still can't dictate it. So we have to kind of live with what we have and find ways to make it work as best we can. So that being said, I'm going to ask if anybody's ready to bring a motion for or against whatever you want to bring. But if we really need more discussion, I'm open to it, but I'm beginning to think we're rehashing. So.
Well, I'm willing to close the public hearing and make a motion that we accept staff recommendation and adopt the following conditions, which would be the recommended condition regarding the the survey, and that we also add the creating of a grease container enclosure that meets the standards of cleanliness and odorness to be a better neighbor. The automatic closure of the one door that faces the condos, and did I miss anything? I don't think so. That would be my conditions.
And either removal of the bench or
the bench, yeah.
Placement in a manner that doesn't encroach on the handicap parking.
Right. I don't want to say removal of the bench, but I want to say that the bench does not encroach ever and is permanent if it's even close to the handicap parking.
It would have to be relocated to another location because against that building right there, there's no room. But he can relocate it to a different elevation. Is that what you mean?
Exactly what I meant.
Can I ask clarification? Did you mean to say a portable grease basin?
Yeah, I think she's referring to
Or
the
removable
recycled
grease
grease.
basin?
It's the recycled grease basin that is a problem for me as it currently sits. And with the new architectural drawing, the architect said that he was going to make sure that that wasn't a problem anymore. And I don't want to tell him that it has to be on wheels or whatever, because I don't know anything about, well, I know it when it gets in my drain, but that's all I know. So I would just say that we need to make it work for the design and to complement the neighbors.
Yeah, basically not visible to the public would be my choice of wording.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay.
Good.
So,
Are you a condition that it also be located in a way and stored in a way that there's no way that the wastewater from the cleaning of that container can ever get into the parking lot?
I don't like the word ever, because I mean, how do we know?
Well, but I mean, there's things that you can do that was you normally clean in that area that you can have provisions. You can have a concrete curb. There's other things you can do. The slope. You can do all kinds of things to make sure in the normal cleaning process that water, if you have an inexperienced cleaner, does not get to the parking lot, does not get out of the storage area, the containment area where it's stored.
So a contained, really good-looking recycled grease area that nobody can see. All right, I would make it that way.
I don't care if it's up, you can see it. Okay, do we have a second?
I hope so.
I'll second it.
Okay. Do we need any additional discussion? Is the motion clear to the people trying to frantically draft it over there? Everything's clear? Okay. So I guess we'll vote. All right. Well, we took a somewhat circuitous route, but I think we got to a place that addressed at least the vast majority of concerns and balanced that against the needs of the business owner. And so I hope everyone else is. But either way, congratulations, sir, and go in good peace. So, all right. So at this point, that brings us to director's comments.
Thank you. I'd like to invite each of the commissioners to the 2015 Planning Officials Forum. The title is called Create, Grow, Sustained. It's at the Nixon Library on October 22nd. It's about 3/4 of a day, starts in the morning, ends in the afternoon. Great topics presented by a consortium of planning directors. A lot of commissioners will be there. It's always been an informative event. So if you'd like to attend, please let us know. Peggy can sign you up. and that date again is October 22nd.
Thank you. Nixon Library. All right, that moves us to our city attorney.
No comment.
All right, so we'll come back to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Ludden, would you like to start us off?
I think we had a good evening tonight. This was kind of a complex topic, and there were a lot of things that needed to try and understand. Thank you to the staff for trying to make that as clear as possible. Thank you to the director for adding the perspective about the parking. That was very helpful. And I think it was a good evening. And thanks to everyone for their good work.
All right, we're going to work our way down the line.
I don't know how to say this. I'm troubled that we have such stringent requirements of other restaurants and other development, and it seems that this operation has sort of gotten by us time and time again. And I'm kind of disappointed with that. Hopefully in the future it'll change. I know I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. In fact, I have the impression that it's a compromise, the best you could get out of it. I'm thankful for that.
Oh, sorry. Gail, I was by the Gateway Center today, looking at Panera, and I just noticed that as you drive into that new driveway where they're going to put the signal, that the curbing is already bent over with a lot of tire marks on it. It's pretty tight. So I don't know if you could ask parking. I think that they're going to be moving the back or something. That curve is going to be gone, but it looks like that might be a potential dangerous curve there. And then I also noticed as you drive in right there, if you look up on top of Pepino's, there's some units, air conditioning units, or some kind of something that is visible. And they didn't put that whole new siding that is prevalent throughout this new complex. It's like brick or something that you see over by Wild Wings, or even just the new wood siding. They've left this old brick, and I didn't know if that was part of the plan that we had previously approved, but it's odd to me that it's the only old-looking part of this new, beautiful complex. And the other thing I noticed, too, is that there doesn't appear to be too many handicap parking spaces while they're under construction. So just something, because I know you like to talk to the traffic guys. And thank you, Jennifer, for that good report, and that's it.
Well, this is interesting tonight. I saw that Avila's finally managed to make it to us, and so I was glad to see that it's here. I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with it, and I'd already expressed my comments to the applicants. I'm just hopeful. I guess I'm not necessarily optimistic, but I'm hopeful that the improvements will also diminish the code enforcement activity in that area with regard to that particular location. And I will go visit Avila's. I like good Mexican food, so I'm going to go do that. I do have a comment I noticed. We approved the hookah lounge there by Wiener Schnitzel mentioned. They've got some blue lights kind of hanging off the roof. Not quite sure we approved those.
Like a rope lights?
Yeah. There's some kind of rope lights, and probably aren't too noticeable to most people that are out in code enforcement during the day, but driving by at night, they're pretty visible. So just a little FYI, and great job by staff as usual. Thanks.
All right. If you could let the folks in the graffiti abatement department, I can't remember her name, I think it's Anne, but just kudos. I sent her some pictures, and she replied promptly, and everything was cleaned promptly, so I'm actually going to send her some more that I discovered today, but I wish we didn't have that problem, but it seems we do. But here, even when we disagree, we are able to laugh and get along, and I appreciate that. And so I just want to thank my colleagues for another wonderful meeting, and thank staff for getting us so well prepared. And just in keeping with the theme, I'm going to finish with the Lake Forest Little League update. Fall ball starts on Sunday, weather permitting. So our first games will be Sunday, assuming it doesn't rain again. So, we don't care about the heat. We'll bring ice water, but if the city closes the fields, we can't play. So and otherwise, I will adjourn the meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting on October 8th. And thank you.